Have you ever heard of a man who won the lottery only to be broke within 5 years? Or an athlete who earned millions during his career but ended up with nothing after retirement? These stories are not about bad luck. They are lessons written in gold and lost in carelessness. They whisper a truth as old as time itself. Money without discipline will always disappear. There's an old saying that money talks. But if you listen closely, you'll find it only says one thing: goodbye. When handled without discipline, the great irony of wealth is that it doesn't vanish through misfortune. It slips quietly through careless hands. The very thing we chase so desperately has no loyalty to those who fail to respect it. Money is like water in a vessel. Without discipline, it leaks drop by drop until one day we find the vessel dry. Discipline, on the other hand, seals the cracks. It keeps what we've earned, multiplies what we save, and rewards what we manage wisely. The man who controls his habits controls his destiny. The one who lets impulses rule soon finds himself a servant to his own desires. We often believe more money is the solution to financial problems. But history and human nature tell us otherwise. A man earning a small income but managing it with prudence often lives in peace, while another earning 10 times as much may drown in debt. The truth is simple. It's not what we earn. It's what we keep and what we respect. Money has a peculiar character. It gravitates toward order and flees from chaos. It seeks the calm hands of discipline, not the restless grasp of indulgence. It rewards clarity, planning, and patience. When we make a plan, when we record what we spend, when we save a portion of all we earn, we are not limiting our freedom. We are ensuring it. The undisciplined person treats wealth like a fleeting guest. The disciplined individual treats it like a trusted friend. Every coin we waste on impulse steals from our future, while every coin we save invests in our dreams. Discipline doesn't shout, it whispers. It's the quiet decision to pause before a purchase, the steady habit of tracking progress, the courage to say, not yet, when the world demands, right now. Think for a moment about the nature of money. It is neutral, neither good nor evil. It simply amplifies the qualities of its owner. In the hands of the disciplined, it becomes a tool of creation, a servant of purpose, and a builder of dreams. In the hands of the careless, it becomes fleeting, chaotic, and self-destructive. The difference is not in the amount earned, but in the character behind the earning. Discipline transforms a modest income into stability and abundance, while the lack of it can turn even great riches into ashes scattered by the wind. The disciplined man does not waste, because he understands value, not only the value of money but the value of time, effort, and patience. Every fortune ever built had its roots in discipline. It is the unseen architect of prosperity. It teaches restraint when the world shouts indulgence. It teaches foresight when others act on impulse. It whispers patience when opportunities seem slow, and persistence when challenges grow loud. A disciplined man measures before he spends, saves before he flaunts, and plans before he acts. He does not confuse movement with progress, nor spending with success. His wealth grows silently, brick by brick, as his habits align with his purpose. Discipline does not promise speed, but it guarantees permanence. There are those who inherit wealth and lose it, and there are those who start with nothing and rise to security. The difference lies not in inheritance, education, or chance. It lies in the steady hand of discipline. It is the invisible guardian that stands watch when temptation knocks. It reminds us that every dollar saved is a soldier of freedom, every budget a shield against uncertainty, and every small act of control a step toward mastery. The disciplined person lives with a quiet assurance because he knows that even if all were lost, he could rebuild again. His habits are stronger than circumstance, and his discipline greater than any setback. Wealth without discipline is a mirage, but discipline without wealth is a seed that will one day bloom into abundance. Money magnifies who we are, discipline refines who we become. There is a mirror hidden within wealth, one that reflects not the surface of our appearance, but the depths of our character. Give a man money, and you will see his truth unfold. It reveals his wisdom or his folly, his patience or his impulses, his gratitude or his greed. Money by its very nature holds no morality. It is a magnifier, a lens that enlarges what already lives within us. If we are thoughtful, money deepens our thoughtfulness. If we are reckless, money intensifies our recklessness. It is discipline that filters and refines this power, shaping our impulses into intention and our desires into design. There are those who believe that if they could only earn more, all their problems would fade into comfort. Yet history has shown again and again that the unprepared mind cannot handle abundance. Without discipline, prosperity becomes confusion, and gain becomes burden. The sudden arrival of wealth does not create wisdom, it exposes it. Just as sunlight reveals every flaw upon a surface, money reveals the patterns of a person's thinking. The disciplined man uses wealth as a means to grow, to give, to build, to secure. The undisciplined man uses it to indulge, to escape, to impress, to forget. One finds freedom in his fortune. The other finds chains of his own making. Discipline is the sculptor that shapes the raw stone of opportunity into something lasting. It teaches us that every dollar must have a direction, and every dream must have a structure. It reminds us that self-control is not the enemy of enjoyment. It is the foundation of it. When a person learns to govern his spending, his emotions, and his desires, he gains mastery not only over his finances but over his life. He no longer reacts to the world, he directs it. Money, under his guidance, becomes a servant rather than a master. It works for him, grows with him, and reflects his clarity of purpose. The more disciplined he becomes, the more powerful his wealth becomes, not because of its size, but because of the intelligence behind it. The careless man, however, sees money as an escape rather than a tool. He spends to fill voids, to silence discomfort, to prove worth. But no sum of money can heal a restless spirit. It only amplifies the noise within. The disciplined man understands this truth and therefore builds not only his savings but his soul. He invests in learning, patience, and restraint, knowing that true wealth begins in the mind and expands outward. As discipline refines character, money becomes the reflection of that refinement. In the end, the man and his money share one identity. If he is wise, his fortune endures. If he is foolish, it vanishes like smoke carried away by the wind. Fortunes are not lost overnight. They fade through daily neglect. Wealth seldom vanishes with a single mistake. It erodes silently through countless small choices that seem harmless in the moment. A man does not wake up poor one morning after years of prosperity. He simply looks around one day and realizes the slow leaks he ignored have emptied his reservoir. Neglect is a quiet thief, patient and invisible. It doesn't knock at the door or announce its arrival. It slips in through the cracks of carelessness and makes a home where discipline has left. The great truth about fortune is that it demands attention. What we fail to manage, we inevitably lose. It begins subtly. A missed budget, an unnecessary expense, a little indulgence justified as reward. The mind whispers, "It's only once," and soon that whisper becomes a habit. Day after day, small decisions accumulate like grains of sand, and before long they bury the very foundation upon which success was built. Neglect never looks dangerous in its infancy. It wears the disguise of comfort, the illusion of ease. But underneath that comfort grows decay. Just as a garden, when left unattended, is overtaken by weeds, so too does wealth, when left unguarded, become the victim of its owner's inattention. Those who maintain their fortunes understand the sacred power of consistency. They do not let their success lull them into complacency. They review, they measure, they correct, and they learn. They treat their money like a living entity that requires care, not as a pile of coins that will stay where it is. The disciplined individual recognizes that every dollar must be accounted for, every investment must be observed, and every decision must serve a purpose. For him, attention is not a burden, it is a privilege. He knows that stewardship, not luck, is the foundation of lasting wealth. Neglect grows in the shadow of assumption, the assumption that things will always remain as they are. But no fortune, no matter how large, can survive continual disregard. When the builder stops maintaining the walls, the structure weakens. When the sailor stops adjusting his sails, the ship drifts off course. The same law applies to money. Wealth demands direction. Without it, it slips quietly away, finding new owners who respect its nature. Prosperity, like trust, must be nurtured daily or it withers. Those who believe fortune is permanent often learn too late that it was only rented by their attention. In the quiet hours when a man reflects upon his life, he may see how his losses did not come from catastrophe, but from moments when he simply stopped caring. The decline of wealth is rarely dramatic. It is gradual, almost unnoticeable. It is found in forgotten details, postponed plans, and ignored warnings. But the disciplined man stays awake to these moments. He tends to his fortune like a craftsman polishing his tools, aware that neglect is the surest way to turn abundance into memory. True prosperity begins in the mind, not the bank account. Every fortune ever created was first imagined in the quiet chambers of thought, long before the first coin was earned or the first deal made. Wealth, like any great structure, must be built twice, first in the mind, then in the world. The man who thinks in terms of lack will find himself surrounded by scarcity, no matter how much money he holds. But the one who thinks in terms of growth, value, and contribution will find opportunity unfolding before him in ways others cannot see. Prosperity is not a condition of money, it is a condition of mentality. What we think about, we move toward. What we neglect in thought, we lose in life. A person can receive a fortune and still live in poverty if his thinking remains narrow and fearful. Money cannot change the man who refuses to change his mind. It can only amplify the limits he has placed upon himself. The poor thinker spends recklessly because he cannot see beyond the moment. The prosperous thinker plans patiently because he sees the long road ahead. True prosperity requires more than earnings. It requires awareness. It requires one to understand that money flows to those who respect its laws, to those who use it as a servant rather than worship it as a master. It begins when we realize that our greatest asset is not what lies in our pockets, but what lives within our thoughts. Every person walking this earth carries within them a mental climate that attracts or repels abundance. When a man thinks creatively, positively, and purposefully, he opens doors that others walk past without noticing. He is not waiting for luck, he is creating conditions where luck naturally occurs. His mind is alert, ready to recognize opportunity, disciplined enough to act wisely, and humble enough to learn from mistakes. This is the soil where prosperity takes root. Without that fertile inner ground, even a sudden windfall will not last, for it will have no foundation upon which to grow. The undisciplined mind, however, is like a field left unattended, overrun with weeds of fear, doubt, and impatience. No amount of money poured into such soil will yield fruit. The thoughts we plant determine the harvest we reap. True prosperity begins with gratitude, expands through discipline, and matures through service. When a person begins to see money not as a measure of worth but as a tool of purpose, his entire world changes. He no longer asks, "How can I get more?" but "How can I become more?" That question shifts his mind from craving to creation, from consumption to contribution. And as he grows, so does everything around him. Prosperity, then, is not something we pursue. It is something we attract by becoming the kind of person capable of handling it with wisdom and grace. The difference between success and scarcity is controlled habits. The line that divides abundance from lack is not drawn by circumstance, but by daily conduct. What we repeatedly do becomes what we permanently experience. Every prosperous man has one thing in common: a disciplined relationship with his habits. He understands that wealth is not a sudden reward, but a result of countless small, consistent actions performed with purpose. The undisciplined man, on the other hand, lives at the mercy of impulse. His habits are uncontrolled, his attention scattered, his efforts sporadic. And so his results are uncertain, his progress unstable, and his dreams unfinished. It is not misfortune that holds him back, but inconsistency. Controlled habits are the quiet architects of destiny, shaping every corner of our lives long before results appear. Each morning, a person begins to define his future by the habits he chooses to follow. If he saves before he spends, learns before he relaxes, plans before he acts, he builds a foundation that will not crumble when challenges come. Habits, like invisible threads, weave the pattern of one's life. They may seem small, how we think, how we spend, how we react, but they form the structure upon which success or scarcity rests. The careless man allows emotion to guide his choices, while the disciplined man allows principle to lead his path. The former hopes for change, the latter creates it. The controlled habit, though simple, holds within it the power to transform a life beyond imagination. The truth about habits is that they demand attention every day. They do not form overnight, nor do they fade in an instant. The process is slow, deliberate, and often unseen. A single wise choice, repeated often enough, becomes a reflex of success. A single careless act repeated often enough becomes a reflex of loss. The greatest mistake one can make is believing that small actions do not matter. In truth, the smallest actions repeated with consistency determine the largest outcomes. The man who spends 10 minutes each day improving his mind will one day find himself far ahead of the man who never begins. The one who sets aside a portion of his earnings regularly will achieve security while others wonder where their wealth has gone. Controlled habits give direction to power. They focus energy, eliminate waste, and transform potential into achievement. Without them, even talent and opportunity are squandered. Every great accomplishment, whether a thriving business, a healthy body, or a peaceful home, is simply the product of controlled habits practiced over time. The disciplined person understands that habits are not chains but tools, not restrictions but pathways. They free him from confusion by giving his actions purpose. The man who governs his habits governs his fate, and as the days pass, those habits, once difficult and deliberate, become effortless expressions of his character, guiding him quietly but firmly toward the success that discipline always guarantees. Every dollar is a silent servant. Command it with purpose. Money, when you think about it, is one of the most obedient tools a person can possess. It never argues, never refuses, never acts on its own. It will go wherever you send it and do whatever you instruct it to do. Yet the tragedy is that most people never give their money any orders. They let it wander, drift, and vanish, then wonder why it never seems to stay. A dollar without direction is like a worker without leadership. It accomplishes nothing. But a dollar given purpose, no matter how small, becomes part of a great army that builds freedom, stability, and peace of mind. The wise man understands that money is a servant, not a master, and that the way he commands it reveals the measure of his wisdom. When a man earns money, he is given both opportunity and responsibility. Opportunity to use it well, and responsibility to ensure that it serves him, not enslaves him. Every dollar he earns should have a task, a mission, a destination. Some dollars should be instructed to build his future, placed into savings or investments that grow quietly over time. Others should be assigned to sustain his present. Food, shelter, necessities that support his work and well-being. And a few should be directed to give back, acts of generosity that expand his sense of purpose and gratitude. When money is managed with this kind of clarity, it becomes a living system of order, each part serving a greater whole. Without this structure, even great earnings dissolve into confusion. Most people never realize that the smallest sum, wisely handled, holds immense power. It is not the amount but the attention that creates abundance. A man who respects a single dollar will one day command thousands with ease. A man who disrespects small amounts will always struggle no matter how much he earns. This is why discipline is the foundation of financial peace. It teaches us to treat every coin with care and every expense with thought. Each dollar should be asked, "What will you do for me?" If it has no answer, it has no purpose. And money without purpose disappears like water through open fingers. To command money wisely, one must also command oneself. The undisciplined person cannot direct his wealth because he cannot direct his desires. He spends from emotion, not intention. He reacts to temptation instead of responding to reason. But the disciplined man leads with vision. He knows that each dollar is a worker building his tomorrow, a seed planting his harvest, a reflection of his values. He assigns them duties that align with his goals and dismisses waste as an enemy of progress. In time, those silent servants begin to multiply, working tirelessly to create a life of independence. Money, in the hands of such a man, ceases to be a source of worry. It becomes an instrument of freedom, quietly obeying the one who commands it with wisdom and purpose. Carelessness is the quickest path from abundance to anxiety. There is no quicker way to lose peace of mind, wealth, or opportunity than to handle life's gifts with neglect. Carelessness is not an act. It is a habit of thought, a gradual loosening of attention that spreads like rust over one's character. It begins when a person starts to believe that success can be maintained without effort, that what has been built will remain standing on its own. Yet nothing of value sustains itself without care. A garden untended is overtaken by weeds, a business unmanaged declines into disorder, and a fortune ignored fades into memory. Abundance is a guest that stays only as long as it is respected. The moment we become careless, that guest begins to leave quietly through the back door, taking with it the comfort it once brought. Carelessness is born from comfort. When things are going well, when the bills are paid and the bank account looks full, a person begins to relax in the wrong way. The sharp edge of attention dulls. The discipline that built success gives way to ease, and ease gives birth to error. The mind whispers, "It's fine now, you've earned a break." And in that small moment of surrender, the slow decline begins. It's rarely dramatic, rarely immediate. But it is certain. Little by little, decisions become impulsive, spending becomes indulgent, and the clarity that once guided every action fades into complacency. And when reality finally catches up, it feels as if fortune has betrayed us, when in truth we betrayed ourselves by neglecting it. The antidote to carelessness is awareness. To remain conscious of our habits, our choices, and our responsibilities is to stay awake in a world that lulls most people to sleep. The successful man understands that abundance is fragile. It demands stewardship. He reviews his finances, revisits his goals, and renews his commitments not because he doubts his success, but because he respects it. He knows that attention is the true currency of prosperity. Where attention goes, order follows. Where attention fades, chaos grows. He tends to his wealth, his work, and his character with the same care each day, knowing that the moment he takes them for granted, he risks losing what he worked so hard to build. Carelessness also reveals itself in thought, not just action. A careless thinker lets negativity creep in, allows fear to dominate, or takes opportunity lightly. But every careless thought sows a seed of consequence. The disciplined thinker, however, guards his mind as he guards his money. He thinks with precision, speaks with intention, and acts with purpose. His awareness becomes his shield, protecting him from the quiet decay of neglect. Abundance is not lost to storms, but to silence. to the slow, unnoticed drift of carelessness that eats away at what was once secure. When a man chooses awareness over apathy, responsibility over reaction, he transforms anxiety into assurance and keeps his abundance alive through the power of deliberate care. Wealth stays where respect for money lives. Money, like any valued relationship, responds to respect and retreats from disregard. It has no emotion, yet it seems to sense the attitude of its possessor. When treated with appreciation, it grows. When taken for granted, it vanishes. Respect for money is not greed, nor is it obsession. It is understanding. It is the awareness that every dollar represents effort, time, and energy that cannot be reclaimed once spent. To respect money is to respect the hours of your life that created it. Each coin, each note, each deposit is a fragment of your labor, a portion of your time on this earth, converted into value. When a man understands this, waste becomes difficult and carelessness impossible. Respect for money begins in small decisions. It is seen in how a person treats even the least amount. Those who shrug off a few wasted coins will one day shrug off entire fortunes. The disciplined man treats a single dollar with the same attention as he would 1,000, for he knows that money behaves according to the law of respect. It gravitates toward order and flees from neglect. A person who respects his money keeps track of it, plans its use, invests it wisely, and saves it with patience. He does not spend to impress, but to progress. He does not seek validation through possessions, but fulfillment through purpose. His relationship with money is not emotional, it is intelligent. He understands that money is not the measure of who he is, but a reflection of how he thinks. The disrespectful man treats money as though it will always return. He spends before he earns, borrows before he plans, and wastes before he reflects. To him, money is nothing more than a fleeting guest, and it behaves accordingly. It leaves him. When the bills pile up and the comforts fade, he calls it misfortune, when in truth it was his own attitude that drove wealth away. Money does not discriminate, it simply follows discipline and departs from disorder. It has no loyalty to anyone who fails to respect its power and purpose. True respect for money also means using it with integrity. To hoard it selfishly is to misunderstand its nature, for money is meant to circulate, to create, to serve. But circulation without control leads to loss, while generosity guided by wisdom creates abundance. The person who respects money spends thoughtfully, saves regularly, and gives purposefully. He honors its potential by directing it toward growth and goodness. And in return, money rewards him with security, stability, and peace of mind. The more respect he gives it, the more faithfully it serves him. Wealth, after all, is not sustained by numbers alone. It is sustained by attitude. When respect for money becomes a natural part of one's thinking, wealth ceases to be a fleeting possession and becomes a trusted companion, quietly multiplying under the steady hand of gratitude and care. Building wealth requires patience. Keeping it requires principle. The process of creation and the art of preservation are two sides of the same coin, and both demand a strength of character that few cultivate. Patience is the discipline of time. It teaches us to sow long before we expect to reap. Principle is the discipline of truth. It guides us to act rightly even when no one is watching. Together, they form the foundation upon which every enduring fortune rests. Without patience, success becomes reckless. Without principle, success becomes hollow. The man who masters both will never fear the rise and fall of circumstance, for his wealth is not merely in possessions, but in the person he has become. Patience teaches us that time is not an enemy but an ally. Every meaningful accomplishment grows in stages, and each stage tests our endurance. A seed does not bloom because it demands to. It blooms because it waits nourished and protected. The same law applies to money and success. The impatient man seeks shortcuts, chasing easy gain and instant gratification. He mistakes movement for progress and risk for reward. Yet those who understand the quiet power of patience let their money mature, their ideas develop, and their efforts compound. They know that true wealth is not found in sudden windfalls, but in steady growth guided by wisdom. Patience refines judgment, prevents waste, and turns persistence into profit. Principle, however, is what ensures that wealth remains. Many can build fortunes through ambition, but only the principled can keep them with honor. Principle is integrity in action. It is the moral compass that keeps a man from losing himself while gaining the world. Without principle, prosperity corrodes character. A dishonest gain never stays long, and wealth built on deception dissolves with the same speed it appeared. The principled man, on the other hand, values his reputation above riches. He earns fairly, spends wisely, and gives generously. His wealth endures because it is rooted in virtue, not vanity. His success uplifts rather than exploits, and for this reason it remains steady even in uncertain times. The patient man builds, the principled man preserves. One sees the long road ahead and keeps walking, the other stays true to his values when temptation whispers. These two qualities, patience and principle, are the silent guardians of prosperity. They shield a man from the storms of greed, pride, and haste, keeping him grounded in reason and guided by purpose. In their absence, wealth becomes fragile, fleeting, and corruptible. But when both dwell in the heart, every effort compounds, every decision strengthens, and every blessing endures. Discipline is not restriction. It is preservation of freedom. The world often mistakes discipline for limitation, as though self-control were a cage that confines one's desires. Yet the truth is far different. Discipline is the quiet force that guards freedom, the invisible structure that allows life to flow without chaos. It is the architect of independence, the protector of peace. Without discipline, freedom decays into disorder, and what once felt like liberty becomes slavery to impulse. The man who cannot control himself is never free. He is ruled by circumstance, by temptation, by every fleeting emotion that passes through his mind. But the man of discipline stands steady. He owns his choices, his time, and his destiny. To preserve freedom, one must build boundaries strong enough to contain his weaker moments. Discipline does not say no to joy, it says not yet. To ensure that joy lasts, it does not deny comfort, it defends it. Every person who has achieved lasting success understands this paradox: freedom without structure leads to bondage, and structure without freedom leads to frustration. The balance is found in discipline, where control becomes a form of liberation. The disciplined man wakes early not because he is forced to, but because he has chosen mastery over mediocrity. He saves not because he fears poverty, but because he values security. He thinks before he speaks, spends before he plans, and acts with purpose rather than impulse. His restraint is not a burden, it is his greatest strength. The undisciplined person, however, confuses indulgence with freedom. He spends recklessly, speaks thoughtlessly, and reacts impulsively, believing he is living freely while in truth he is being led by his own undirected desires. The more he chases freedom without discipline, the further it escapes him. He becomes bound by debt, regret, and disorganization. His world narrows as his options vanish, for true freedom can only exist within the framework of responsibility. The disciplined man, on the other hand, enjoys the fruits of his control. His mind is clear, his path steady, and his heart calm. He moves through life with quiet confidence, knowing that each choice he makes is his own. Discipline is not the enemy of pleasure, it is its preserver. It ensures that freedom remains a companion, not a memory, guiding its possessor through life with dignity, direction, and enduring peace. And here lies the essence of the matter. Money without discipline will disappear, fortunes slip away from careless hands. This truth stands as firm today as it did 100 years ago. You cannot out-earn poor habits, and you cannot out-luck irresponsibility. Wealth is not maintained by chance, it is maintained by character. So, my friend, take a moment today to look at your life and your habits. Are you guiding your money, or is it guiding you? Are you the master or the servant? Begin now, no grand act required. Just one deliberate choice to handle what you have with care, with purpose, and with vision. Because discipline, once practiced, becomes the foundation upon which all lasting success is built. Discipline is the invisible guardian of wealth. It is the quiet strength behind every enduring fortune, the unseen force that shapes the lives of those who rise above circumstance and hold their ground against the tides of temptation. Discipline is not merely a habit, it is a philosophy, a way of living that governs how a man spends his time, his thoughts, and his money. It is the gentle but firm reminder that every choice carries a cost, and every careless moment has a consequence. Those who understand this truth build their success not on luck, but on intention. They know that wealth, like a loyal companion, stays only with those who respect it enough to protect it.